views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the individuals participating in the show. All persons described or mentioned in the podcast should be considered innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. This podcast contains subject matter such as violence and graphic descriptions along with adult language, which may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
On November 28th, 2004, a 30-year-old banker in Nairn, Scotland, is reading a bedtime story to his sons. There's a ring at the doorbell, and he goes to check. What happens next is considered one of Scotland's most mysterious unsolved mysteries. What happened and why? Let's find out. You're listening to the Mysterious Brews podcast, and tonight we bring you the case of Alistair Wilson.
Top stories in Scotland today.
Shot dead outside his Highland home. Bank manager gunned down just after he put his children to bed.
It was a murder that appalled the nation. Almost 20 years on, it remains one of Britain's most mysterious unsolved crimes.
It has all the hallmarks, really, of a gangland hit. But at the moment, they are desperately seeking for a motive. They have no idea. They're trying to pick together and piece together this man's life and his lifestyle to try and work out why someone would possibly want to do this to him.
30-year-old father of two, Alistair Wilson, had been assassinated on his own front doorstep.
Welcome to a deep, dark, dank, moist basement somewhere in the bowels of Georgia. Well, Coachum, I serenaded you before we started with It's a Rainy Night in Georgia. It's just one of them.
Dude, it is miserable out where I'm at.
And it's just coming in waves. And it's not very hard, but it's just nasty. It's that nasty old rain. It just make you turn your windshield wipers on every once in a while.
Are you sure you're describing the rain, or is that how Mrs. Arlo described your wedding night?
Well, that could have been it too. It was just nasty.
Coming in kind of soft and nasty.
Came in waves. She was so nice to me yesterday. She let me cut grass and use that weed eater. She's so sweet to me.
Dude. Man,
she said if I really play my cards well, she's going to let me use a chainsaw next weekend.
Son of a gun, dude. You must have done something right.
I must have. I'm living the high life.
That's right.
Well, I don't know, and you know how we don't know shit about nothing. But with that said, we do, I believe, have some new patrons.
Nice.
And if you're not new, you're getting a double shout out.
You know what I love is when we do foreign cases, so I get to hear your terrible accent.
Oh, hell, where did it go?
I love it.
Well, you should. It's pulling the old crap ton again. All right, here we go. No, we do have some. Sweet Jesus. We got Melissa J. I think we did this last week. Who cares? Anyway, y'all getting a double shout out. Melissa J. and Angela Raymond. And I believe you got a 5-star review.
I do. Sadly, even though all of our listener feedback about the Audible review, sadly, Brett didn't reach out, so he must not listen anymore. But still rated number one review of all time. Excuse me. So, however, we've got a new 5-star rating from Red 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, who has rated us twice before. But says, I really happy I found you guys. And 5 stars. I will give you guys 5 stars every day. Thank you for starting this podcast. I tell everyone I know to tune in. That is freaking awesome. And every time you update your review, we will read it on air because we are whores.
Yes, we are. We are the 5-star reviewers. So,
before we get started, what was you going to say?
I was just going to say that if you are a tried and true
listener and you've been with us for a while and you've not left us a 5-star review, it don't take but about 30 seconds.
And it really helps us, even though we've got hundreds of 5-star reviews and 1-star, we still cannot top 4.8. I don't get it.
I wish we could find that woman. And I mean, what was it? Episode 3, and she just shit the bed on us. I was like, look, lady, hell, we don't even know what we was doing.
It was episode 1.
We recorded that thing like 4 times.
And she's like, if you want to hear beers cracking at the loud enough to pop your eardrums, this is the podcast for you. Like, dude, we were literally on like Fisher Price headphones and shit. Like, it was pathetic.
Yeah. The only thing that could have been worse is if we'd have recorded it on our cell phone.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, so
before we get started, I guess got an observation I just want to point out. I've been waiting to talk to you about it all week.
Oh, this ought to be good.
No, it is good. It's a good thing. It might sound like it's not going to be, but it is, I promise. Like, I love going to Pigeon Forge. I go to Pigeon Forge a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm a redneck at heart. And that is the Redneck Riviera. When you're from where I'm from, you can't go to Pigeon Forge without seeing somebody you know. You can go on a damn Wednesday. You can go on Wednesday in March and you'll see somebody you know. You go on a Sunday in October, you'll see somebody you know. But that's not the point. But I have observed this several times and it just dawned on me. But I think it is, I love it. I'm in love with this. But every time we go on vacation, it don't matter if it's Pigeon Forge or if it's Florida or wherever, if it's a touristy destination, always seem to run into a black family wearing matching shirts. And it's always like the Smith family reunion 2023 or the Johnson family spring break 2024. And like, it's like a group of like 20 of them. And it's amazing because I'm not close to my family. There's no way my family's going anywhere together. But it's always, the kids are wearing the shirts because they have to. The women are always tight knit and, they're having a great time. And then you see the men, they're like, I can't believe I'm wearing this fucking t-shirt.
Amen.
Like, it's amazing. And we saw like 4 or 5 different groups of families with them on. And I'm just like, that is awesome. I love it. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Yeah, I'm just like literally not close to my family like that at all. And I never have been. If it's not my sister or my father, I don't really talk to them. Kind of sad, but it's true.
All right, so the only thing that I was going to go over from our previous episode was Miss Natalie Walker said that she loved the episode and that her and Peace Cat both agreed that the blood in Danny Williams' pocket could have come from blood on the hands. And it says Perp goes for wallet or Williams goes for a weapon, maybe, if they had gotten into a fisticuff. So that is
that's a good point.
That is something that we didn't really spend a whole lot of time on how the blood got in there, but that is very good points. We had one person respond on Spotify, and I can't respond to their response. And it's just the same old thing. The general question on Spotify is, what do you think about the episode? And this guy says, I don't want to misquote his username. And he is the only one to respond. His name is Omega Blue, and he says, I'm calling bullshit.
That's it.
That's it. I don't know at what point where we called it, but it was called.
It's like, did you enjoy the episode? I'm calling bullshit. That's fair. We'll take it.
Right. Spade's a spade, brother.
That is a good it's a good observation.
So this case comes from Coach's list of 1,000 million cases that he has.
When I was trying to scroll through my list of things, when I was trying to find the 411 What's the word I'm looking for?
Oh,
the list of characteristics to
yeah.
make it a 411 case. I just stumbled across that name, and it was in big bold letters, and then the parentheses really caught my eye. My little reminder about what the case was, and I was like, what the hell is that? And I looked it up, and I was like, damn, we should do that one. So
we did.
This one was damn near the bottom of the list.
And what's funny is
that far down.
We have waited long enough that there was a little bit of traction here lately on it.
Yeah, I think that was planned.
I think it was too.
Yeah.
At least that's what we're going with. Okay, so we are talking about Alistair Wilson and the blue envelope. And this case takes place in Nairn, Scotland on Sunday, November the 28th, 2004. Now, Nairn is a town in the Highland Council region of Scotland, roughly 17 miles or 24 kilometers east of Inverness, with a population of just over 10,000. It is best described as a market town and ancient fishing port. Now, if you looked at what will be my recommendation, there is a YouTube 1-hour mini documentary on this case. It does not look like a fishing port to me. There are a bunch of sailing vessels there, but they don't look like they're doing any fishing.
Is there water there?
They are on the sea. It's on the northeast.
They're fishing, bro.
I don't know, brother. This is a little pricey. There's 2 Scottish link style golf courses right there, and there's a bed and breakfast that will set you back about $250 a night.
Well, they did invent golf in Scotland.
I know, this place looks awesome, and so I looked it up.
And if you've ever heard Robin Williams describe how it was invented,
it's funny. It's very accurate.
If you haven't heard that, look it up.
Yes. Him and Craig Ferguson on the Late Late Show, that may be some of the best ever. But anyway, so back to Nairn. According to VisitScotland.com, Nairn is a relaxing and friendly seaside resort in the Scottish Highlands. That's more like it. Blessed with 3 beautiful beaches, stunning scenery, and 2 championship golf courses. Touted as, quote, one of the sunniest and driest places in Scotland, it is ideal for walking, cycling, golfing, and touring the Highlands. I think, and I'm sure somebody from across the pond will correct me, but I think it is at the edge of the Highlands, and so it is one of those places that you can kind of leave from as you tour the Highlands. It's very beautiful. Very, very beautiful. And according to the BBC, it has a proper beach where you can get sun between your toes. Now, it was around 7 p.m. and Alistair and his wife Veronica are at home putting their kids to bed. The doorbell rings and Veronica goes to answer it. Veronica described the man at the door as having a stocky build, wearing a dark jacket and a ball cap. The guy says 2 words, Alistair Wilson. So she turns around, goes up, gets her husband. Alistair goes to the door, and the man hands him a blue envelope with the name Paul written on it. He closes the door, goes back upstairs to Veronica with the envelope in his hand, and she states that he has this perplexed look about him. And he opens the envelope kind of to show her that it's empty and he doesn't understand what's going on. And he asked her about the man. And she says, the guy asked for you by name. So he goes back downstairs and Veronica hears 3 gunshots. The mysterious man just walks away. The blue envelope is gone and Alistair has been struck twice in the head and once in the chest. Unfortunately, he dies en route to hospital.
And what's crazy, when you say the man just walked away, he walked away in a manner that avoided all CCTV cameras. No surveillance on this guy. Crazy.
Yes, and that's what I don't understand is like, because across the street was a hotel with a pub attached to it. And we'll get into that. And also, I'll try to put a picture of, there's a couple of pictures of the front of the house out there. I'll try to grab a screenshot from that little documentary on YouTube. You're not, like, anybody can see you. This is not like a covered doorstep tucked away on a side street. I mean, you're out in the open.
Yeah.
So Alistair, like I said, passes away en route to the hospital. Now, the shot placements would lead one to believe that this was a gangland or professional hit, because 2 to the head, 1 to the chest is indicative of someone knowing what the hell they're doing. Now, the killer was reported to have turned left along Crescent Road and headed towards Marine Road. Initial reports have police wanting to question a stocky, clean-shaven man, aged 35 to 40, 5'6" to 5'10", who was wearing a baseball cap and a blouse and zip jacket and dark blue jeans. Now, a blouse and jacket looks very similar to the old members-only jackets of the 1990s here in the States. And if you don't know what those are, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, Google it. It's worth a Google. Those were the bee's knees in the 90s.
Very embarrassing, but I used to have one.
I had the knockoff, but there you go. So one thing to note is that Veronica was cleared of any involvement in Alistair's murder very early on. There is the 999 call of her requesting assistance, and it is gut-wrenching. You can hardly understand her, and the lady that unfortunately answered it was trying to calm her down and did not grasp the situation.
I mean, how do you calm somebody down that just experienced something like that?
Yeah, I mean, you can tell that it is just unfiltered. I mean, she's distraught.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
I mean, she just, and I guarantee you, I don't even want to even imagine what he looked like with 2 shots to the head. But anyway, so the envelope, it has never been found, and it is assumed that the killer took it with him since it was not left at the crime scene and it was not found in the cursory search. Now, I
don't think you said what was written on it, did you?
Yeah, I said just the name Paul.
You just said it was empty,
and it was empty, and no one knows a Paul. And that's the thing. Like, Detective Superintendent Gary Cunningham from the Police Scotland shared with Fiona Walker from the BBC that the name Paul was on the envelope, and the envelope was empty when Alistair returned upstairs to his wife before he was shot. Now, he stated that since the envelope has never been found and that there has been no Paul to come forward or in Alistair's life, authorities believe the envelope was used as a ruse. But to what end? Veronica states that when Alistair came back upstairs, he asked what the gentleman had said to her when she answered the door. She went on to state that Alistair had a bewildered look on his face as he looked at the envelope and asked her what the man had said. When she told him that the man had asked for him by name, that's when he returned downstairs. Now, here's the odd part. Authorities kept the fact that the envelope was empty until 2017. This is another instance of key information, or I guess what authorities believe is key information, being kept from the public. The envelope being empty has no outcome on the case. I don't see any angle in which this would have been a vital piece of evidence as the case unfolds.
I mean, but is it possible that it wasn't empty when he got it handed to him in the first place? He did walk.
Yeah.
He had time to
take whatever was
the contents out.
And that was a theory early on. I saw in a couple of articles that they had thought that maybe there was something in there that would have led him to know who was at the door or who had sent the man at the door, I guess is a better way to put it. But a major question that ties the envelope to the murder is that why did the killer allow Alistair to return upstairs to his wife while he waited in the doorway? If the killer's main job was to murder Alistair, why allow him the opportunity to not only close the door, but he could have closed the door and called the authorities?
Well, why exactly did he come back upstairs anyway? I mean, does
no one knows. That's the thing. Like his wife, Veronica.
So he basically walked upstairs, showed his wife the empty envelope, and walked back downstairs.
The way it is portrayed in the articles I read and a couple of the videos, and there's a podcast the BBC put out called The Doorstep Murder. I think there's 8 episodes. It's on Apple Podcasts. And the lady that I referenced earlier, Fiona Walker, she's the one that is doing that podcast. And she does a very good job. The way that they portray it is this person shows up. Veronica answers the door. This man says 2 words, Alistair Wilson. She walks up. She closes the door, walks upstairs, gets Alistair. Alistair comes downstairs, and the way it is, I guess, portrayed is the man doesn't say anything, just hands him this envelope, this empty envelope with the words or with the name Paul on it. I don't know, nobody knows if words were exchanged because the only person that is probably still alive is the gunman. But
the wife's not alive anymore?
The wife was back upstairs. So by the time,
okay.
You see what I'm saying?
I'm sorry. I got you.
So then I don't know why he would have returned upstairs, but the way that Veronica, and that's another weird thing. When Fiona interviews her, and she interviews her a couple of times, she's only allowed to interview Veronica in the police's presence. It's very odd. Yeah. And so when she interviews her and asks, and she apologizes, and I think she does a wonderful job with kids' gloves because she knows this is a very traumatic experience for Veronica. She asked her, what did Alistair say when he come upstairs with the envelope? And she said that she was busy putting wet towels away from the boys' bath, and that he kind of walked in kind of befuddled and was like, did the man say anything? He handed me this empty envelope with the word Paul on it. And she goes, he just said Alistair Wilson. And she says that he just turns around, walks back downstairs. And by the time, I guess a couple of seconds pass, by the time he reaches downstairs is when she heard the shots.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very, very odd. Very odd. So, again, you could theorize along the lines that I think you were questioning. Did the killer want Alistair to absorb the oddity that was the envelope? Or was this a case of mistaken identity? And that was one of the early theories, was this, that Alistair was not the intended target.
Well, I mean, he asked for him by name.
And that's where they go through that. He is asked for by name. And then the other thing is, this was a fringe theory, but they asked, was Alistair killed by someone who thought his name was Paul? Kind of like his name's Alistair Wilson, but he goes by Paul, which doesn't make any sense to me. Also, another question that was posed was, did the killer really want Alistair to show Veronica the envelope? What is the significance of this envelope to the Wilsons in the killer's mind? Like, would the color, because it's been described as a little bit bigger than a greeting card envelope, and it was a bluish color. I think there is, if I'm not mistaken, I think there is a article on BBC News that shows it is. I'll put that on there. It's just it's like a baby blue envelope. It's a greeting card. I mean, it's not very big. Maybe the size of your hand. But anyway, so that's another question out there. Mistaken identity doesn't really work because, like you said, and Veronica has stated over and over, the guy at the door asked for Alistair by name. 2 words, Alistair Wilson. Now, there was another Alistair Wilson that lived in Nairn at the time. However, he was much older and did not resemble this Alistair Wilson in the least little bit. And the other Alistair...
Did that Alistair Wilson know a Paul?
No. According to the authorities, now they are keeping a lot of stuff close to the vest, but according to the authorities, he did not know a Paul.
Neither one of them.
No. There was no...
One of the most
I'm sure there's
names.
Pauls around Nairn, but according to Police Scotland, both Alistair Wilsons did not know a Paul.
One of the most common names in history. Neither one.
Nairn, a person in Nairn knows it. So, unfortunately, the other Alistair passed away in 2017 from natural causes. Now, a criminologist from the Birmingham City University, Dr. Mohammed Rahman, stated that this case has the hallmarks of a professional hit. One, because the hitman left no forensic evidence at the scene. Two, the killer carries out the murder in an open environment where the only advantage was that it was dark outside. And three, the fact that Alistair was shot at the door also signifies that this was professional. Now, on the surface, it doesn't, but when you look at it closer, you realize by shooting Alistair at the door after he has returned from asking his wife, Veronica, about the envelope, Alistair never suspected a thing and never assumed that his life was in danger. He may have been bewildered at the envelope being addressed to a Paul and thinking that this was a case of mistaken identity, but he would more than likely have never thought he was about to die. Now, you may be thinking that the killer possibly could have asked Alistair to place something in the envelope or negotiated for something to be placed in the envelope, but this is not the case at all. If negotiations were going to take place, it would have transpired at the beginning of the encounter. Now, remember, Veronica stated that Alistair was bewildered at why the envelope was empty and addressed to Paul. And he did not appear scared in the least little bit. When she is pressed about whether or not there was a last name to Paul on the envelope or whether it was handwritten or typed, she is interrupted by the good inspector, and he states, quote, "We cannot divulge that information at this time," end quote.
That's probably a good,
That I can understand.
Probably a good call.
That I can understand. But just not telling people that the envelope was empty, I really don't see that angle. I can see if there was a last name on it, was it handwritten, was it typed, that kind of thing. That is stuff that only the killer would know. And then that would be, if someone came forward with that information, you could say, all right, fucker, we didn't release that, so come over here and let's talk some more. So the envelope could have been a symbolic gesture that coincided with Alistair's work or a project that he was working on. The name Paul could have been used to send a message to someone else on this project or at Alistair's place of business, like, quote, "Look what we did to Alistair. Do not think you are safe," end quote. Now, Dr. Rahman goes on to theorize that whoever ordered the hit wanted the name Paul to be circulated in the media. Could Paul have a biblical reference to the Apostle Paul, or is it an acronym or a code? I don't know. I ain't got a damn clue.
Acronym for what?
That's what no one can figure out. But we are talking about, or we will be talking about, the banking business. So I don't know. I don't know what Paul could have stood for. Now, here's a shocker. The going rate for a professional hitman in the UK in 2018 was only £15,180, which equates to $19,311.67. It's cheaper than you can get a new car around here, boys. I wonder if they take payment plans, because I got a couple of people. No, I'm just joking. But anyway, so John Beattie of the BBC Scotland has a radio show. And while he is on the air, a man calls in and speaks to Mr. Beatty's producer. And they refer to this man as Peter, and that is not his real name. But Peter requests to speak to Beatty about Alistair's case. And Mr. Peter explains in subsequent conversations that he was made aware of who was behind the killing of Alistair Wilson by a friend of his. Now, according to Mr. Beatty, Peter sounded genuinely and was very genuine when he divulged the information, scared shitless about if someone were to find out he was talking to the press. So you have a little bit of credibility there. And then...
Well, do they divulge who he said it was? I mean, do we know that?
Kinda.
So he gives him a name?
Kinda.
Kinda gives him a name?
Yeah, we'll get into why it's kinda in a second. Now,
I want to
Peter,
get into it now.
well, I'm trying to, but you keep interrupting
Get into it
me.
now, bro.
Now, Peter stated that the police were aware of all of the players as well as the true identity of those involved and had been since a year after the murder. Now, keep in mind, this is 2017, 2018 when he calls into the BBC. Peter's allegations are that there is an Irish businessman who had connections to both Alistair and an Irish paramilitary group. There's only one of those up there, and I'll let you say it out loud if you want to, but we're going to refer to them as the Irish paramilitary group.
Yeah, I'm not.
No. Mm-mm.
I'm good.
Yeah. Y'all can use your imagination.
Not
I guarantee
crossing
you.
them.
I guarantee you, if you just type in Irish paramilitary group, you'll get who we're talking about. But anyway, Peter stated that his friend had dealings with said Irishman involving certain aspects pertaining to some paramilitary engagements. And the Irishman had made threats to Peter's friend, stating that if he ever divulged, reneged, or even hinted that he was going to go to the press or the cops on his part of the job, he would be met with a very violent end. Quote, "I can do to you what we did to Alistair Wilson," end quote. Now, Peter stated that the Irishman was known to dabble in some shady land deals, or the way they said it on the BBC was some dodgy land deals with farmers. And Alistair became aware of this scam and was prepared to tell authorities about the Irishman and his wicked, wicked ways.
Mm.
Yeah. Discovering this revelation, the Irishman procured an associate of his who was a former Irish paramilitary volunteer to carry out the murder. Now, the police have looked into all of Alistair's banking connections, and they did find that the bank that Alistair worked for did do some of the banking for said Irishman. There was a joint business between the alleged triggerman and the Irishman. It was fairly plausible, and still is, that there was an arranged hit carried out to silence Alistair Wilson.
I mean, honestly, it certainly does seem like it was professional. I mean, there's...
Oh, it gets even more professional when we get to the gun.
Don't you tell me. Don't you dare.
Oh, I'm going to get it to you. I'm going to foreshadow. It was also verified by both Mr. John Beatty and Fiona Walker separately through their channels with the BBC that the Irishman in question did have accounts for one of his companies with the Bank of Scotland, specifically the branch that Alistair worked at. This information was again corroborated by a separate party, Mr. Sandy Park, the former provost of Nairn and the convener of the High Council. Or, I'm sorry, the Highland Council. Now, you may be asking yourself, what is said Highland Council? Well, it is the political body covering the Highland Local Authority created in 1995, and it comprises of 21 wards, each electing 3 or 4 councillors by the single transferable vote system. which creates a form of proportional representation. The total number of counselors is 74, and the main meeting place and main offices are at the Highland Council headquarters in Inverness. So Mr. Park stated that the police had asked him about the connection between the Irish businessman and Alistair. It was part of Alistair's job to go to functions around Nairn to rub elbows with current customers and potential new customers. Now, Mr. Park would not confirm nor deny if he had ever seen Alistair and the Irishman talking at any of these events. Detective Superintendent Gary Cunningham did tell Fiona Walker from the BBC that the Irishman angle is still being investigated. And that was, I think she spoke to him in 2018, 2019. Pre-COVID, I do believe.
Back when the world made sense.
Yes. Alistair's job with the Bank of Scotland first began in Fort William. This is where he met Veronica. He was then moved to Edinburgh and then again to Inverness. He was basically a bank manager who dealt primarily with investments. Now, his murder was 3 years before the financial crisis that struck most of the world. So in 2004, there wasn't a whole lot of oversight when it came to lending, and everybody was borrowing, especially people that had money. They were wheeling and dealing, trying to make even more money. Now, Sandy Park with the Highland Council had approached Alistair in regard to the council wanting to market the Sandown lands, which would total in the area of 10 to 15 million pounds.
Damn.
That's quite a lot, a chunk of change.
It's not bad. I'll take it.
Now, you can look it up. The Sandown lands are basically natural grass farmlands that have kind of stayed in the Highland Council's possession for a while, and I don't think they've been developed, but right after COVID, the rumor was they were wanting to take part of those lands and make it into a resort, I guess is the best way to explain it. Anyway, now when this conversation took place, Sandy Park states that Alistair had told him that he was looking to leave the Bank of Scotland and go into a different career. Mr. Park stated that while Alistair was high up in the bank, it was rumored that there were some changes coming in the bank in regard to what bank manager's new role would be. Alistair had been looking for a new job and to change careers for quite a while, according to Veronica. However, she said he could have changed jobs pretty easily and pretty early if he was not worried about moving the family. But he wanted to stay in Nairn because that is where he wanted to raise his kids, and they fell in love with the area themselves. So he was looking for the right job that would keep him there, but also, you know, he wanted to make sure that he was moving upwards and not making a lateral move. Now, when pressed on the issue of whether Alistair's murder has ties to his job or his personal finances, Detective Superintendent Cunningham states that he cannot divulge any of that information due to this being an ongoing investigation. Now, people at the Bank of Scotland in Nairn also have very, very tight lips. All they will comment is that, quote, employees have been interviewed for numerous hours, end quote. So there's something there. But they're not divulging any of that. So again, this kind of goes back to the Irishman and maybe some shady shit going down that involved Alistair and the bank and this Irishman. Will make you go,
It's interesting.
Yes, it is. Now, the gun.
Uh-oh.
Here we go.
Not the gun.
The gun. 10 days after Alistair was murdered, a gun was found. Street cleaners in a street not far away from Alistair's house were cleaning drains. There was a specific drain that was blocked and was constantly flooding the road, so the provost of Nairn at the time arranged to have it cleaned. They make this out to be like this huge deal where they damn near had to convene a party to get someone to actually say, yes, go clean the drain. But anyway, they get the drain. It's been approved. They dispatch street cleaners. And there is this one specific drain, and it is almost directly opposite a church on Seabank Road on the left-hand side. When they were cleaning the drain, one of the workers spotted something at the bottom of the drain. Now, the way it looked was it's like a grate, and it's got the little place where the water would fall through on the curb. But when you take that grate off, it's like they've got like a catch basin in there that kind of filters out some of the shit, and then it falls into more of a, I guess, sewer system that would take it back out to the ocean. When they're lifting the grate off the drain to empty and remove all this loose debris, they peer down to the bottom and they see a gun. Initially, they think that this is a toy and someone is playing a sick, twisted joke on them, considering that Alistair had just been gunned down 10 days prior. One of the workers asks another worker, it's a county work project, there's many of them around, to go and
just standing there.
Yep, to go and fetch him not the regular shovel, but the double-handed shovel to lift out. Basically, it's like a set of post hole diggers, but it's a proper shovel head, 2 shovel heads. So eventually they do get this double-handled headed shovel, whatever the hell, and they cherry-pick this gun. And the worker that picks it out, it seriously is thinking it is a toy. So he places it on the sidewalk and he goes to pick it up. And he says, when he picks it up, he realizes real quick, that ain't no plastic toy. And because it had some weight to it. So he puts it right back down on the side of the street and takes his caution cone and puts it over it and immediately alerts the authorities. Now, this drain in question was located only a half a mile from Alistair's home. Now, police were hopeful that they could recover a print or even better, some DNA evidence from the gun, but no such luck. Police now have a preliminary idea of the route that their killer took after shooting Alistair. The gunman is said to have left on foot, so he could have either walked by the drain and dropped the gun in the drain that way, or he could have walked around the corner from Alistair's house, got into a getaway car, and since the drain's on the left-hand side, whoever was driving, he would have been the passenger, and so he would have went right by that drain and could have just dropped it out the window that way. Now, despite not having any DNA or fingerprint evidence, police were able to link the gun ballistically as the murder weapon. The gun in question was a CG Heinoschansmeiser. Yes, that is absolutely phonetically correct.
Say it again.
Heinoschansmeiser. Basically, it's a pocket pistol that was made in Germany around 1920 or 1930. It is of the caliber 6.35 millimeters, or for those of us over here, it's a 25 caliber pocket pistol. It holds 6 rounds, and police were able to trace the history of said pistol, but it was not related to any other crimes. And it was not the only pre-World War II pistol from Germany to be found after Alistair's death in the town of Nairn. Since 2004, 2 other pistols from this one, from the same German manufacturer, Heinoschansmeiser, have been found in Scotland. Those 2 did not have any criminal history tied to them either. Now, it is alluded to in this little documentary that I keep referring to on the YouTube that the other two were probably antiques, heirlooms from people who had fought in World War II, and they had just kept them up there and didn't know anything about it. And then when a relative passes away and they're cleaning out those stuff, they find them. But again, none of these guns have any criminal history tied to them, except for the one that shot Alistair. Now, a new lead emerges around the time the pistol is discovered, however. Police were looking for information on two men that were spotted on a Highland beach with a handgun a month before Alistair's murder. A new eyewitness.
So, what I've been trying to say for the past 5 minutes.
I apologize. I do apologize. I had a coughing fit and I thought I muted myself and I did not. I believe I have had you on mute for a good 5 minutes.
You had to have. I was trying to say, I mean, they're pretty rare guns, though. I mean, even though, I mean, the fact that there's three on a small island like that, post-World War II or not, I mean, pre-World War II or not, I'm sure you were right about the heirlooms, which is something I tried to point out.
I do apologize. I'm just over here like having a coughing fit, and I'm like, God, I hope I muted. I see the red light. And I look down, and I'm like, damn, he ain't said nothing, and I've already said Hanno Schnauzmeiser 2 times. And then there's this big blinking red light that says mute, 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 and I'm like, well, shit.
I was like, this motherfucker, when he gets reading his notes, he don't let me talk. I try to talk. He gets mad when I interrupt. I
know. I was like, God, say something so I can take a drink of water. And then that's why I had to.
All right. Okay. Well, I forgive you then, because
I was over here about to die.
I'm like, dude, this isn't you're not by yourself tonight, bro.
I know. I'm like, come on, damn it. I'm about to croak. Oh, me. So here's what I'm thinking.
Well, you pretty much stated everything that I was going to state, but you know.
Well, here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that these little pocket pistols may have been something that a lot of the German soldiers in World War II carried as kind of like a backup, or, hey, if shit gets sideways, you can always turn it on yourself. And while it was not as rare as a Luger or as coveted as a Luger would have been, I'm sure anything from that era would have been taken and brought back.
You know what I like is the Liberator. You know what that is?
The pistol Liberator?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one the Americans airdropped into France.
Yeah.
That was just one shot. They called it the gun to get a gun. You pop one of them in the back of the head and you take their weapon. I've always wanted one of those. They were like preloaded, like you couldn't reload them. You couldn't do anything to them. They just had one shot.
There's a guy that does like self-defense handgun stuff. Actually, it's all weapons training. I think it's called Thunder Ranch. Or he's got a real gruff voice. I'm sure everybody's seen him. He's the one that says, a shotgun with the right load at the right distance will take a chunk out of someone and throw it against the wall.
Yeah.
He says you better be damn proficient with whatever firearm you're carrying, but don't be so proficient that you can't pick up another weapon and use their bullets against them. He makes a huge deal out of making sure that you're using your pistol to gain heavier, larger firepower and use the enemy's ammo against themselves. But yeah, that would be a cool ass find if you could find one of those Liberator pistols.
I would love one. And you know what? There's a Civil War era pistol I want. It's called a LeMat.
Ooh, I may have remembered this one, but go ahead and say it.
It was like a 9-shot pistol, and then the 10th shot was like a shotgun.
Yes.
Like a little barrel underneath it.
Yeah.
I want one of them. So if you're listening and you have a couple sitting around
of either variety,
contact us at mysteriousbrews at gmail.com and I'll give you my address.
We may even drive to you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. If I don't have to get on a plane, we'll make it happen. We'll make it happen, Captain.
That's right. So, like I was saying before I damn near died and didn't realize that Coach was muted, was around the time the pistol is discovered, a new witness comes forward and states that they had seen two men on a Highland beach with a handgun a month before Alistair's murder. This new eyewitness claims that they had gone for a walk on the beach near the end of October, and they remember seeing two males not only with a pistol, but shooting said pistol into the sea. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, that's not that odd. People shoot stuff all the time. Yeah, but we're talking about Scotland, where it is against the law to have a pistol. So one of these gentlemen was stated to be around 20 years of age, and the other was said to be between 40 and 60 years of age. While it is common for farmers to have shotguns, it is extremely uncommon and against the law for anyone to be possessing a handgun in Scotland. Now, instead of searching for a lone assassin, police are now searching for two suspects. The two men clearly knew each other, according to the eyewitness, and it's possible that there were now two people involved in the murder of Alistair Wilson. Quote, "We believe that the description of the person responsible for Alistair's shooting was previously described as between the age of 30 and 40 and may be significantly younger and as young as 20 years of age. The new composite of the killer is that he was between the ages of 20 and 40, 5'7" in height, and was wearing a baseball cap and blouse and jacket. It was the authorities' hope that the new, younger description would jog the memory of any potential eyewitness who had been in Nairn at the time of Alistair's murder." Now, in true genius fashion, Coach held on to this topic until we got a new lead, a new theory that emerges in this case.
It's just, I mean, I'm telling you, it was just perfect timing, really.
It really was. And this is the theory that came about in September of 2022, one that would change the entire investigation.
I mean, honest to God, it has definitely been on my list since before then. I guarantee you, the fact that it was so far down means it's been there since we pretty much started. So
she's a beaut, Clark.
It's just serendipitous, man. Sometimes things work out like that.
It is. It is so serendipitous.
You know, you can't say that. You can't say serendipitous.
You can't say it proper. You can't say it proper.
You can't say it like a burly man. You
know? No, you cannot.
Which reminds me of like hold on. Sidebar. It reminds me of a Zach Galifianakis joke when he was like, "There's certain words you just can't say."
That's right.
Like a man.
That's right.
Like you can go into a convenience store and just be like, "Yeah, man, let me get a 6-pack of beer, Bud Light. Let me get a can of Skull. I'm going to get this beef jerky and a pack of Skittles."
Oh, taste the rainbow.
You just can't say Skittles.
Nope.
Like a burly man. You just can't. Anyway, go ahead.
So detectives say that conversations in a hotel pub in the days leading up to Alistair's murder could be significant in solving the case. The Havelock Hotel is right across the road from the Wilsons' home, and the new owner, who had recently taken over ownership, built an outdoor deck seating area that went into the parking lot on the side that's opposite the Wilsons' home. The pub was a very popular place, and people were really invested in this new outdoor seating area. People that attended the pub actually helped build said deck, and they took a lot of pride in the construction.
And it seems, I mean, the village is pretty small, so there's probably not a whole lot of places there anyway.
No, there's not.
So it's probably a very big gathering place for the locals.
Yes, and again, this new deck was just mere yards away from the Wilsons' home. And when I say mere yards, I mean you could probably throw a quarter. That's how.
I mean, but is it worth murdering over?
I don't know. So basically, the Wilsons upstairs. The Wilsons upstairs is actually overlooking the deck and the pub. Now, a pub across the street is mine and Coach's dream. Okay, I'm just gonna be honest with you. That would be the ideal place. However, a young couple such as Alistair and Veronica with 2 boys under the age of 4 would not have been so pleased.
No.
Now, it is inevitable that there would have been a lot of noise and boisterous conversations coming from across the street. Now, the new owner, after the construction of the deck is completed, decides to then petition the Planning Commission for the upgrade. He doesn't petition to get it approved and then build the deck. He just builds it and says, fuck it, I'll see if they'll approve it. Naturally, Alistair writes an objection letter listing all of the reasons why this deck is not a good idea, and he sends it off to the Planning Commission. Just 2 days before Alistair is murdered, the owner of the pub receives a letter from the licensing authorities in Nairn outlining the concerns that Alistair has raised. The letter goes as far as to name Alistair as the person levying the concerns.
That's not right.
Nope.
I don't think you should do that.
Nope. I don't either. Especially at a pub.
But again, is a deck worth murdering over?
I don't know, dude. In a press release by authorities, they state, now, bear with me, this is quite the long quote, but they state, quote, it is believed that there were conversations in the pub the night of the murder that were quite heated about the objections raised by Alistair. If Alistair's objections was upheld, then you are talking about a lot of money being wasted, even more money having to be spent to remove the new deck. This was enough for the police to begin questioning patrons of the pub. Authorities are extremely interested in anyone who was at the pub the night of the murder. We are looking for who knew what, when, and who said what, and when they said it. It became common knowledge that apparently there had been some kind of threat or nasty remark made about Alistair in the pub. We've interviewed a lot of people who were in the pub that night. There was a level of conversation within the pub, with some patrons being upset towards Alistair's complaints and the potential of the deck being taken away. We want to find out if during that weekend, was there anyone making any threats? Was anybody speaking disproportionately about taking action against Alistair? Demonstrating a level of real concern that would suggest Alistair will be coming to harm at some point in the future. The police want to know if anyone drinking in the pub that night made any sort of threat aimed at Alistair Wilson as a result of the planning objection. We are extremely interested in finding new witnesses who may have overheard any such threat being made. We believe it's motive, or at least part of the motive, and we need the community's help. Those that are associated to the Havelock Pub, those that might have been in the Havelock Pub, just to get a better understanding of what was being discussed, end quote. That was a mouthful. But basically, Alistair's name's getting thrown around. Did you say that's what she said?
I'm just saying. She said, that's what she said.
Well, she wasn't talking about me, brother.
Me either, my man. Me either. Unfortunately.
So basically, somebody's dumbass lets Alistair's name slip as the person that is trying to block the zoning commission's approval. It gets back to the patrons after many a pints have flown on the weekend. It sounds like there was some veiled threats, maybe not so veiled, thrown around the pub. And the
we're talking. If you're talking about people that have gotten intoxicated and they got themselves riled up, I mean, honestly, do you think that they're going to
Frankenstein's monster, man?
Well, I get that, but I'm just saying I'm not saying that drunk people can't be talked into doing horrible things. I'm saying drunk people can't be talked into doing horrible things and leave no evidence.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think there's no forensic evidence whatsoever.
No, it would not have come across as a professional hit.
Yeah, it doesn't lead me to believe it's some drunk ass dude at a bar. You're not taking my deck away. I'm gonna show this guy.
Yeah, and I think the other thing with that is, I won't say that yet. All right. So with release of this information, the police divulged that they have new leads and they feel they're making progress, and it's given a renewed sense of optimism that this case may eventually be solved. According to the Scottish truecrime.median.com, quote, Police Scotland and the BBC appear to know a particular suspect but have not provided the name. An interesting article then appeared in the Daily Record in June 2023, reporting that the suspect in question had been jailed for an unrelated drug offense, end quote.
But
no, I still agree with you.
I don't blame them for not releasing the name. If they don't have the evidence, you can't just put someone's name out there as a suspect because, the town's going to start treating them. You just can't do that.
No. I agree with that. And I also agree with your other point.
Without some sort of evidence, you just can't do that.
Yeah. And also you have to consider Alistair's children at the time of his murder was 4 and 2. They are now 24 and 22. They are more than capable of carrying out a revenge.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So as of today, there's not been any arrest. That was the last thing that I could find that was a sort of update on the case. Now, we can get into our theories. I'm like you. I don't see a drunk walking across the street with a pocket German pistol that he's never brandished or shown anybody before, popping Alistair in the head twice and then one in the chest, and then calmly walking away and dropping it down the storm drain. I do see possibly the owner of said Havelock Hotel may be acquiring someone with the capabilities to do that.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about a shit ton of money that was going to now, and we're talking new money. The pub's already established. You've got your regulars, you've got your general seating inside the pub, but now you have just basically added a new room to the pub, and that's even more patrons and even more money in your pocket. So that right there is motive.
We're talking about the money to tear it down too. That's going to cost a lot of money to get rid of it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Here's the thing.
It's a big headache. It really is. You got to think about it. It would be a huge headache if they did have to get rid of it.
Oh yeah.
You're talking about lost revenue. You're talking about spending the money to get rid of it, but still, we're talking about cold-blooded murder over a deck.
Well, and the other thing that I don't understand is if it comes out tomorrow that this person did kill Alistair over the deck and his objections and whatever, all of this could have been prevented if the dumbass had just gone before the planning commission and said, hey, I want to build a deck. Instead of just building it and letting the chips fall where they may.
Well, it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission.
Well, that is true. That is true. Now, as far as my theory, I still like now, I don't know. I don't give a shit if he's Irish or not. I think a wealthy businessman that was dabbling in some less than up and up land deals around Scotland has a lot of motive to get rid of a bank manager that may shit on his cash cow.
I agree with that.
I know that over there it's different from over here because of the firearms situation and all that stuff. But anytime the Irish paramilitary group is thrown around, you have to take a step back. Because it wasn't that long ago they attempted to murder, I think, a Scottish prime minister, maybe? I think that was in an article I read. Like, maybe 95, 97? So within, like, before Alistair was murdered, with, like, previous 10 years. Now, another angle that they really go heavy on is that Alistair could have been a whistleblower for something going on when Alistair or the Bank of Scotland was taken over by H-Boss.
Oh, so what the hell is H-Boss?
So from what I could gather, H-Boss is like the conglomerate that buys up a bunch of banks. It acquired the Bank of Scotland and another bank over there into like an umbrella. It's almost like the HSBC. I think of them as Citigroup. They just come in and snatch up the mom and pop ones. But anyway, they were saying that he could have been a whistleblower for some shady shit that was going down inside the bank, but there really wasn't anything that I ever saw that kind of told you what he was blowing the whistle on. It does sound like that he was not happy with the changes that were coming down and that he was looking to make a change in his career within the next 2 weeks, but unfortunately was murdered. I don't know, man. Of all the theories out there, I think a wealthy businessman in some shady land deals that basically was playing a Ponzi shell game with his money and getting a high return on it and had been, I think he thought the gig was up and this was the only way to protect his cash cow. That's just my gut feeling. But Occam's razor may say that some dumbass was able to go over there and shoot him twice in the head and once in the chest. I just don't see that happening. I really don't.
I don't either. I don't see that happening either. I kind of tend to agree with you, but I also think that I can't really give a good theory because there's just I think there's a ton of information that we don't have. Like there's something.
Yeah, and it's almost when you watch or you listen to that podcast, and that podcast you could probably listen to all 8 episodes within probably half a day. They're like 20 to 25 minutes each. When you listen to the interview with Veronica, it's almost like she has a gag order by the police on what she can and cannot say, and she does not do many interviews. I think Fiona was granted an interview just because she was from the BBC.
Yeah.
So, and again, going back to the Irish paramilitary group, there is the guy they named or that they refer to as Peter that has not only his story's been corroborated because he supposedly has told authorities the name of the Irish businessman, and that is the same businessman that the provost from the Highland Council said had some land deals with Alistair. So I think that angle right there also is pretty credible. But anyway, so my recommendation will be either to listen to the podcast Murder, what did I tell you? The Doorstep Murder. You can find it on the BBC's website. You can also find it on Apple Podcasts. My true and tried recommendation is Murder on the Doorstep, Who Killed Alistair Wilson on YouTube. I'll try to put a link to that on our social, but I'm not promising anything. But they do a very good job. It's about an hour. It's very well put together. It's very well produced. So there you go. That's my recommendation. What's your recommendation there, bub?
Well, I've been pretty busy. Haven't really done a whole bunch this week. So I'm going to recommend a movie I watched last night, and that is the new version of Roadhouse.
I did hear it was a guilty pleasure.
It is what it is. Watch it for Conor McGregor alone. I mean, you can tell that the director gave him a big old bump of cocaine
and said, "Have at it,"
and said, "Hey, man, just go be yourself, brother." So,
was there any women being groped?
No.
See, he's just
a little bit, not much. It's this a little more PC than the original, but
hell, I ain't even got $20.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I ain't got $20, but check it out, man. Like if you like the original Roadhouse because it's a shitty movie, but it's entertaining. You'll dig the new Roadhouse. So that's
anybody that grew up in that time will tell you that it's like what I was told when I went scuba diving. There's two people out there in this world that grew up when the original Roadhouse came out. Those that when it's on AMC on a Saturday or Sunday will sit down and continue to watch it wherever it's at. And there are the other people who will lie to you and tell you that they did not watch the rest of it.
Exactly.
It's kind of like the guy that I went when I got certified to go scuba diving. We were diving in one of those springs that are just brutally cold in Florida. And he goes, "Boys and girls, there's two types of divers, those that piss in their wetsuits and those that lie about it." But anyway, all right, Coach, well, you got anything else?
Oh, I don't.
Deuces.